Excited to see you and to start the morning off by talking to you. My name is Darcy Kern. I am a professor of history at Southern Connecticut State University. I am also an alumna of the program, and I enjoyed it very much. I learned a tremendous amount doing this, so I hope you guys have had a good experience as well.
Good morning, good people. I'm so happy to be with you. My name is Maryam Memar-Sadeghi. I participated in this program the very first year that it was offered, and over the last 10 years or so, I've helped get the Center for Civic Education's curricula into the hands of people in Iran. That's where I'm originally from. We use technologies like Zoom and social media. I wish you the best.
Yeah, good morning, Virginia. My name is Christopher Riano. I'm a professor of constitutional law and government at Columbia University and also assistant counsel to the governor here in the state of New York.
So we are going to ask you question 3. Aristotle asserts in Politics that it is not the form of government ruled by the one, the few, or the many that matters most, but rather the ends of government that are most important. Where in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution did the framers set forth the ends of government? How did the framers differ, if at all, about how the ends of government should be prioritized? Which of the ends of government set forth in the Declaration and the Constitution appear to have the highest priority today? You may begin.
In his Politics, Aristotle believes that man is a political animal because man can speak, reason, and seek social relationships. According to Aristotle, social relationships create government, and the purpose of government is to satisfy man's need for these relationships. The form of government did not matter. A monarchy could be just as healthy as a polity as long as it helped the people achieve their fundamental telos.
The framers agreed on basic ideas about the purpose of government, which sharply contrasted those of Aristotle. The framers believed that the people entered into contracts with their government where the government was obligated to protect their natural rights. They also thought that the only form of government that would protect these rights sufficiently would be a republic, where the will of the people is the source of legitimacy and direction. The framers' beliefs were condensed into the phrase life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, derived from John Locke's natural rights theory and included in the Declaration of Independence.
This document outlined what ends of government Britain neglected. The king and parliament did not protect property rights, abandoned rule of law, and ignored the safety of the people. In the preamble of the Constitution, the goals of government are to establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, and promote the general welfare, but this is merely a different form of protecting natural rights. Article 1, Sections 8 and 9 ensure that the government defends its people and protects the rights of property through Congress's ability to maintain an army and issue patents. The 5th and 14th Amendments later guaranteed life, liberty, and property.
The Philadelphia Convention extensively debated the means by which the government would achieve the ends. The greatest dispute amongst the delegates was over the need for a Bill of Rights. While all delegates believed the government had to respect and protect individual rights, the convention wrongly decided that a Bill of Rights was not needed to achieve that purpose.
However, some framers believed in different ideas about the ends. Individuals like Gouverneur Morris of Pennsylvania believed more in protecting the rights of humanity over the right of property. Morris claimed that supporters of domestic slavery in Virginia and South Carolina did not understand natural rights, as a slave is still human, and a human cannot be considered property.
The framers' later debates were over how much power the federal government possesses. Hamilton argued for a strong centralized bureaucracy, whereas Jefferson argued for a limited federal government with powers to the states. Neither of these politicians disagreed on the ends of government, they merely disagreed on how the government most effectively protects natural rights in the long term.
The priorities accorded to each of these rights was rarely explicitly articulated during the framing period. However, political movements throughout American history have naturally selected one of these rights to promote, often at expense of the others.
The government has never prioritized protecting the natural right to life in American history, at least not in the same sense that the other two ends have been. When life comes in conflict with liberty or the pursuit of happiness, life never triumphs. For example, capital punishment protects the social order and the happiness of many in society. However, it is government-sponsored death.
Cases like Gregg v. Georgia uphold the constitutionality of the death penalty, despite its violation of the duty of government to preserve its citizens' lives. Roe v. Wade deemed the bodily autonomy of a woman more important than the life of her unborn child. Throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, preserving citizens' liberty was the primary purpose of government. These eras were characterized by emancipation and suffrage movements that culminated with the 13th, 15th, 19th, 23rd, and 26th Amendments.
Instead of the traditional Lockean right to property, the framers chose the pursuit of happiness in order to create a more inclusive protection, one that covers civic virtue, education, and scientific progress. Today, the government focuses on this pursuit of happiness, which often conflicts with other natural rights. Business regulations, the SEC, and the Federal Reserve are examples of how the government prioritizes general happiness rather than individual property rights and liberty to act freely in the market.
As Jimmy Carter said, for this generation, life is nuclear survival, liberty is human rights, the pursuit of happiness is a planet whose resources are devoted to the physical and spiritual nourishment of its inhabitants.
Thank you. That was very thought-provoking. You talked a lot about differences and differences in priority, differences in method, differences in mean. And you also talked about the courts and the government prioritizing certain ends and certain rights. But what about we the people? If we the people have differences between ourselves and with the government, how do we resolve this? And how do we hold the government to the ends that we want to see established?
Well, political movements come and go. Articulated in Federalist 78, the judicial has the power of judgment, and even though we have these political movements, the branches of our federal government stay the same as the years go by. And so even though people disagree from time and time again, the overall basis of our government still stands, and we still pass legislature and policy that support a democratic nation.
I think also that representative government creates an adaptability that allows the people to sort of influence the rights that we value. Like the Ninth Amendment, for example, ensures more rights than what is listed in the Bill of Rights to the people. And the House of Representatives allow those rights from the people to be conveyed to the government.
Well, what rights does the Ninth Amendment protect?
I mean, rights in substantive due process, like the right to privacy, the things that the Supreme Court rules on using things from like the 3rd, the 5th, and the 9th Amendment.
Well, due process is protected in the 5th and 14th, right? There's nothing about due process in the 9th. So is there something special about the Ninth Amendment that you think really maybe hasn't been elucidated the same way that it could be? I mean, you're right, the right to privacy, there's something baked in there. And I think this goes back to one of your original points about good government, right? How does the Ninth Amendment maybe fit into that concept of good government?
Well, I think the importance of the Ninth Amendment is that it kind of gives the people rights that aren't necessarily enumerated in the Bill of Rights. And so that allows for the people to kind of create rights almost out of nothing, which isn't a bad thing, but it makes it so they can kind of adapt the government to an evolving world.
Okay, so stepping outside of government and law into society and the ends of government, how do you see where we are today, or even before this corona crisis? Do you think that as a society we have enough consensus and unity on the ends of government, or are we suffering from too much polarization, partisanship, atomization? And in particular, could you speak to the role of social media and just traditional media?
Well, I think the main problem that faces our nation today is kind of seen in the right that we described, the pursuit of happiness. It was intended by the founders to be kind of a form of civic unity, civic community, going back to the classical Republican virtues. But instead, it's kind of sacrificed that at the expense of individual pursuit of happiness rather than pursuit of happiness for the common good. And social media kind of definitely exacerbates this by promoting kind of self-indulgence, promoting your own views at the expense of others.
The framers originally intended for the government to solely protect the natural rights of the people. Over time in American history, this has changed. If you look to the legacy of the New Deal, FDR started providing services to the people. And then even looking fast forward to 2010, the GOP changed their slogan from repeal the Affordable Care Act to repeal and replace. They knew that the American people had a consensus that we needed certain things to be provided to us. We needed a basic standard living. So you even look to, when you said about the media, Governor Cuomo on CNN is talking about the coronavirus and getting people to listen in on what's going on. And this is kind of stirring up in the people that we need more relief from the government. Just 2 days ago, the House of Representatives passed a $484 billion relief bill using their powers in Article 1, Section 7. And this is just another instance of the government providing services to the people. And as we change and as we grow over time, the ends of government also adapt to what we want.
Also, Aristotle tried to promote this idea of a community together working for its own community in its form of the polity. But it's interesting that you bring up social media, because that's kind of what is driving the nation as a whole to sort of create this idea of the Aristotelian virtue of kind of coming together to do what's best for society. With the advent of modern media, such as social media, you have more people being able to come together to sort of make this decision as one unit, whereas traditional media sort of did not allow that.
So you think social media is bringing us together?
I think that social media brings us together in a way that it allows people to see other people's views and sort of expunge their own ideas based on that. But I mean, yeah, you can also make the assessment that it's also tearing people sort of apart simply because of the different views that are being shared over social media. But I still think that it's more an Aristotelian perspective, I guess.
Time.
Thank you, guys. That was really an interesting conversation. My next question to you would have been, well, should we teach virtue, classical virtue? Which I think there is something to be said for that. But you guys did a very good job. Your opening statement, like I said in my question, was very thought-provoking. I like how you started with Aristotle talking about how social relations lead to the creation of government. I think that's a really important point. I like how you talked about the differences among the founders on property, on natural rights, on preserving liberty over life. You know, the questions that my colleague and I asked you were difficult, and I thought you handled them very well. You know, one thing to think of, just to push you a little bit, is that you talked about the Ninth Amendment creating rights, but yes and no. I mean, the Bill of Rights is a negative rights document, right? It's to limit the powers and the scope of the government. And I think that the Ninth Amendment is included in that. It's intended to limit what other non-enumerated rights and protect people from government overreach. So I'm not quite sure I would agree with you on that, but again, that's a very minor point, because I thought you guys did a good job. You were focused, you balanced off of each other, you all participated, you gave good examples. So good job. Nice way to start the morning.
Fantastic. I'm not surprised. I know your school, I know your teacher. Just really outstanding in my eyes. Maybe it's because, well, it is Unit 1, so it's all about philosophy, but you took a very philosophical approach to the philosophy. Not all teams did that. And I liked the grounding in important ideas, you know, great ideas from people that it was clear you chose. You know, you at some point in the year or in your preparations were inspired, someone spoke to you and you said that, you know, from Morris, for example, we're going to take that, we're going to put it into our presentation. It was clear that you had done a lot of hard work, methodical preparation, and then because of that, you could reference your own thinking, your own conscience, decide what you think is most important. And, you know, I believe that's the most important thing in life, to not just work hard and have all the facts at your disposal, but to then be able to pull up what you think is right and to act on it. So this is an amazing foundation you have for your future. And I hope that you don't underestimate its value, because you know, you're going to be doing some amazing things. You're going to be learning a lot more, but what you've learned here in Unit 1 especially, you're going to carry with you always.
Yeah, and I just have to reiterate what everybody said. You guys did fantastic. And Miss Yu, you just happened to open my favorite door in the Constitution, and you did a great job answering that question. And you know what? I'll tell you, I actually, and Mr. Paulson, you did great because you all worked together so well. I knew you could handle a hard pushback like that. I could see it right from the get-go because your intro was that strong. You guys all did such a good job at the beginning. I actually always have at least one student in my class that writes a paper on the Ninth Amendment because I think it's actually one of the most interesting pieces of the Constitution because just as my fellow judges said, it's one of those where I could probably ask most of the justices on the Supreme Court to tell me about it, and they would say, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure. So that says a lot. I think that's incredible when you think about that. You guys did a great job answering one of the hardest questions I've asked all weekend. You guys work together so well as a team. It's clear, as my fellow judge said, that your teacher prepared you exceedingly well. Intro strong, answers strong. You should be very, very proud of yourself. This is how myself and my fellow judges like to start the morning. So congratulations, you did great.
So before we move on, I just want to make sure, I think the students might have missed introducing themselves and their teacher in the beginning. Yes? Okay, let's go ahead and have the students introduce themselves and of course recognize your teachers so we can make sure that we give you all the commendation you deserve for such hard work today to get to this point.
My name is Cameron Nassar. We're Unit 1 for Maggie Walker, and our teacher is Mr. Samuel Olmschneider.
My name is Donovan Stolzheimer.
My name is Henry Paulson.
My name is Jacqueline Yu.
Wonderful. Well, it was very nice to meet all of you. Congratulations today.